When I left here last time, you still here.
Okay.
Okay, I call the Historic Preservation meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Tidmore,
Here.
Commissioner Barry,
Here.
Commissioner Boisvert,
Here.
Commissioner Duquesne,
Here.
Commissioner Flores,
Present.
and Commissioner Young.
Here. Okay, we've got a copy of the minutes from the meeting from October 16 in front of us. Do we have any comments? Chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
Was that Duquesne?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We've got visitor public comments. I don't think there's anything except for the application, is there? Staff reports.
Nothing other than the business.
Okay, I now open the public hearing on application for certificate of appropriateness, file number CA-2023-06. My name is Kurt Tidmore. I am the chairperson for this hearing. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with the Independence Development Code and state law, ORS 197.763. Specifically, the staff will first present the staff report and recommendation. The applicant will then have an opportunity to present the proposal and address any issues raised by the staff report and recommendation. For public testimony, I will first ask to hear from people who would like to speak in favor of the proposal. I will then ask to hear from people who have neutral comments or questions about the proposal, neither for or against. Finally, those in opposition to the proposal will have an opportunity to present testimony. City staff may then present additional material and recommendations based upon public testimony. The applicant will be given the opportunity to have the last word. After each presentation, I will ask for questions from the commission. If you intend to present oral testimony, please fill out a request to speak form located at the city recorder's station. We are recording this hearing, so please also clearly state your name and city of residence when you're called to speak. This will help in preparing accurate written minutes of the hearing and also assist with mailing copies of the decision to all interested parties. If you have written testimony or other evidence to submit, please give it to staff so it can be entered into the record. The commission is required to disclose any conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts that we have had with the proposal or applicant. That is, whether we have any financial or other personal interest in the proposal, and whether we have spoken with anybody about the proposal outside of this hearing. Also, commissioners may only participate if they can do so without undue bias, either for or against the application. Do any commissioners wish to make disclosures?
No.
I did have one conversation with the applicant after it was filed, and the gist of the conversation was, I filed an application, and the response from me was, I'll see you there. Did not discuss any details. Are there any challenges from the audience as to conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, or bias related to any member of the commission? State law requires me to tell you a number of things at the beginning of the hearing. First, the applicable substantive criteria that apply to this application are contained in the written staff report and will be identified and discussed in the oral staff report. Second, your testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criteria these criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to this application. ORS 197.763, paragraph 5, subparagraph B. Third, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker or other people an opportunity to respond may preclude an appeal of a decision on this application based on that issue. ORS 197.763, section 5, subsection C. Finally, to the applicant, failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. ORS 197.796, section 3, subsection B. We will now hear the staff report.
Perfect. Thank you very much. My name's Fred Evander. I'm the city planner here at the City of Independence. This application is for 336 South 7th Street. It is a cute little building constructed in 1880. It's got non-original board and batten siding on the side of it, with some very, very nice trim pieces around the windows. Karen, if you could go just to page 25 of the packet and then flip it on its side, that would be ideal. Oh, that's perfect, right like that. That's just perfect. So, so you can see board and batten siding. You can see some of the character defining features, some of the, they call these, I think this is a boxed eave or something like that. This is a dormer window, or not a dormer, a bay window out the front of the building. You can see some of the trim detailing here and then also on the sides as well. But yep, little small building, cute. It is a primary contributing structure according to the 1989 survey. It is still eligible contributing in the 2012 survey. What the applicant would like to do is change the siding on this wall right here, and then underneath this window right here, where signs of decay and rot are evident. You can see it when you start looking at page like 29 of the packet, and then on to 30. If you could just scroll down a couple, Karen, that would be ideal. So you can start seeing some of the decay here. This is a wood siding that has clear signs of splitting in it. Show the next page there too, Karen. You can see like the split here, and a previous renter tried to fill those cracks with something, with some sort of foam. Down one more, and the foam itself has caused more damage to the building than it actually helped. So this would change the siding on the side. It would replace it with board and batten siding, either a wooden variety or a hardy plank variety with a similar spaced batten. It would, they're trying to make it look like it is. And then again, underneath that front window. And then the applicant also proposes, please go back to page 25, Karen, replacing this window here, and then a window on the other side of the building too. The window on the other side of the building, you can see on page, oh shoot, 33 maybe?
Yes,
Yeah,
33.
right there, this window. So staff evaluated this in accordance with the standards in subchapter 59. Some of the things, the siding makes a whole lot of sense to me. The siding is not original to the building. There are clear signs of decay. So based on all of that, staff would recommend approval of the siding. The windows, it's a little, generally, it's discouraged in the historic preservation standards to change windows, especially if they're wooden windows, to something different. In this instance, they're both on sides of the building. When you look at the building, and when you look at the windows themselves, they're not particularly character defining to the building. There's no specific detailing that you can see on the windows. Karen, if you could flip to, oh, I included that in the staff report. On page 10, you can see that the windows, the trim is very nice. It has a sill at the bottom. It's projected out from the wall, and it has the header at the top, but the windows themselves have very limited detailing. They're just essentially rectangles. There's no sort of decorative pieces on the ends of them or anything like that that show unique woodwork or anything like that. The one on the left, it even seems like it has been kind of modified over time. You can kind of see evidence of that somehow. There's a piece like right here that doesn't quite look right, but so staff generally discourages folks from changing out wooden windows. In this case, I went through identifying architectural character, the preservation brief 17, and they say, look at the overall nature of the house. What is important on the house? They say, look at it from essentially the shape and the setting, and they say, start out there and then move in. And when you start out from the street and the site and everything, the most important things on the building are clearly, go back to that page 25, Karen, because we can kind of see it there. The most important things that we see on the building are the bay window, the things like these windows here, the trim pieces, the roof decoration, you know, and trim, the porch itself. When you look at the things that make up the shape, they're sort of the character defining, and then they say go in and start looking at the details themselves. And so that's sort of what I did with the windows and in that case. And then they say identify the visual character of the interior spaces, features, and finishes. Also, when you look at and I did this specifically for the chair because when because you love definitions, you know, it says, where is it at? There's talks about,
Oh, that page that's got the definitions in it.
I'm on page 14, and I'm pretty certain that right here it talks about a character.
Right.
Oh yeah, so right there.
Identifying, retaining, and preserving windows.
Yeah, right. So right at the top, removing window features, or removing or substantially changing windows or window features which are important in defining the overall historic character of the building, so that as a result the character is diminished. And then it talks elsewhere about specifically like it does allow replace, or it discourages it on non-primary elevations, you know, or it says retain the primary elevation, the non-primary are less important. I can't quite see where that's at, but I know it's in there because I talked about it.
Because you made this,
Yeah, what's
that's
that?
why.
I recall reading that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so like when you look at that, you're like, okay, well, the primary elevation is very important. The sides are less important. And when you look at the overall scheme of the house, it's clear like the front elevation is the most important thing. So long as things that are unique on the windows, like the trim reveal, like the depth from the siding that you have right there, the header trim is retained, and then the sill at the bottom is retained, and the length of the essentially the height and the shape of the windows is retained, so long as those things are retained.
And the width, correct?
And the width, yeah, the height and the width.
Yeah.
Right, that's what makes them somewhat unique. I mean, they're tall windows.
Right.
I should have probably said that, like, when you go back to page 10, would you, Karen? When you look at the windows, you look at it, the windows themselves don't have specific features that would sort of call them out, but the trim does. The trim has this header piece, this sill piece. Also, the shape of the windows is unique. I mean, you see a lot of 3x5 windows right now. You don't see many windows this shape. And so long as the shape, the trim, the sill, and things like the width of the side trim are retained, staff feels like the replacement of the windows is supportable in this instance. I did go through all the criteria associated with that. I won't get into that unless you want me to. It's all there in the staff report. Based on that, I did recommend 2 conditions. The first being what's that?
No fill work.
Fill work that's the second one. The first was the applicant shall document the characteristics and dimensions, including the wood width and reveal above the existing siding of the window header, trim, sill, and match all replacement work to that character. The applicant shall reuse the headers of existing windows wherever possible. And then the second one was the applicant shall ensure that the replacement window completely fills the existing window opening. No fill of the existing opening to match the size of a replacement window is allowed. So based on those, or with those 2 conditions, I would recommend approval of this application. Are there any questions of me?
Any commissioners have any questions for Brett?
No, give me 1 second, please.
I have some questions, actually. So basically, the replacement window will be indistinguishable in both style and material from the original window.
It will be a wooden window. Will it be this? I don't know if it's going to be exactly the same.
But effort will be made to make it look as close to these windows as possible, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And the applicant's has already said they're going to replace any damaged trim.
Well, that's one of the conditions that I would recommend putting on.
I guess my question was, or is rather, is this even an alteration that would require a type 2 hearing?
Well,
I mean, I know you went to a lot of in-depth analysis on the secretary's treatment of windows, which I appreciate, and that we can all learn from it. But I'm not looking at it from the secretary's preservation briefs standard so much as what's required of a homeowner here in the city based on the code.
yeah, I would say regardless, it's an alteration. I mean, the applicant has done a really good job, like trying to match as much as possible the existing building. It's especially things like replacement of siding. I think we all have sort of been through enough where we can look at things like replacement of siding and know that there's the potential for impacts outside of just the replacement. It's not just 1 for 1, because when you take off that siding, you're gonna have to take off the window trim with it. In doing that, you have the potential of damaging the window trim. I would argue that that's an alteration.
Okay, fair enough. I was just curious how we were approaching that as a code, from a code standpoint. I wasn't arguing one position or the other.
Yeah, and I mean, the it's wood siding right now. The applicant has asked to go to a hardy plank, and in doing that, it would be a change of material. And I think it's completely supportable to go to a hardy plank. That's the weather side of that building. And clearly the wood has not.
You're right. My question was mainly about the windows,
Gotcha.
because the hardy plank clearly is a change of material, so. Okay, that was just a curiosity question that was specific to this application. Were there any other questions for this staff?
I don't have anything.
I do real quickly, again, which page spells out the conditions? I didn't really see that.
Oh,
Page
it's,
10.
so what I try and do with these staff reports is always try and have a little summary at the front and then all the criteria sort of behind. So it's on page 10 of this staff report where you
Oh, I
see
now.
both
Okay,
criteria
got it.
and where they come from. So like, think of this as the front as the executive summary,
Right.
and then the stuff
Supporting
behind
documents.
is the,
Right.
Technical stuff.
the
Technical stuff.
the technical appendix,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Okay, I think we're all done with the staff report. And now we can hear from the applicant.
Does it go down?
Right.
I'll stand on my tiptoes. Well, I haven't done this before, so as a applicant, I think it was very educational. And the signage even in front of the little house made people, because it's on a busy street, made people more aware of the fact that this process even takes place. So I think from that standpoint, it was very, very helpful. John and I bought the house about 15 years ago, and it was in a repair that it wasn't really insurable. So we had done a lot to restore it in terms of electrical, painting, siding, roofing, a lot. And so it's had a long-term renter, and now, obviously, because of this report, it needs some help. I also thought it was very helpful that I received in the mail, coincidentally, but the consulting component where you can contact a historic consultant within the city to have somebody come through. And he and I went through the window process and the siding as well. And we would, to maintain the integrity of the little house, try to fulfill some of his requests. And the only thing for that is the time frame was concerning to us because it was going to take a long time to get in the queue to have that type of window historic restoration done. So we got other opportunities, and I think that was nicely outlined here in the report, because we wanted to stay historic to the town and to the neighborhood, but we also wanted it to have some energy efficiency. If you look from the inside, the windows are not able to be actually moved up and down, so there's issues related to, I thought, safety. So before we wanted to rent it to anybody else, we wanted it to be done. And so it's very helpful to hear the recommendations on the two windows on the side, because that will give, I think the word is egress, right? So
Egress,
yeah, okay, there you go.
ingress.
So that's helpful to know that that's a safety concern, and it would also add to the integrity of the little place. But the front windows, they aren't in that bad of shape, and the consultant made some recommendations about the other little historic windows. And I think we'll put that on a little calendar of restoration so that those things can be maintained. But the fact that this report suggests that we can make these changes, especially on the south side has had a lot of damage. And even on the inside wall, you can see how there's going to be more work than is really evident that we see. So the fact that this is being taken care of quickly is very helpful, and I learned a lot. And I agree with everything here. So, but the historic restoration of the little back windows that are small paned and almost not replaceable, I don't think, and the front windows will be done according to the recommendation of the historic consultant person. So, anybody have any questions of us? Me, I guess.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
It was either last summer or the summer before that the yard was all torn up, and was it the house that's over right behind it that faces Monmouth that needed a sewer or something? And is that why it came all the way through this property to 7th Street?
Right, there's an easement there now.
Okay,
So what happened was the house that was gonna be for sale on Monmouth Street,
yeah,
their sewer line went from north to south. But the people that were going to install replaced, it had problems. They couldn't sell their house because the sewer line wasn't functioning. And they reported that the drainage was not steep enough in the way that it was set up. That was going to always cause a problem. So if they were to come our direction, it would help that
a
problem.
little better.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating, because who knew how simple that could be? Because it didn't get all that dug up. It was just one hole over here and one hole here, and then they pulled the pipe through, right?
Pipe bursting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So we gave them the approval that they could do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I will say that we have, it's interesting. Where we're at. Okay. It's interesting in the historic district, you know, it was originally platted where the houses went west and where the lots went west and east. And they have an alley going north and south through the middle of them. It doesn't apply to this one, but several other houses in town, at a certain point when they got built, they got oriented this way. Well, if you're oriented over here and your sewer is running down the alley, that means you need an easement from somebody to get you to the sewer in the alley. And so we have the situation, I would say fairly often, of people who are isolated from the alley needing an easement from their neighbor to get to the alley, to get to the sewer.
Well, I didn't even have an easement, and I had to go through 3 different yards
Yeah.
in order to get to
There's a
to
lot
the
of strange
next street.
sewer stuff in
Oh,
this.
yeah.
I've got 2
There's-
main lines.
There,
wow.
I mean, there's,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and so I just went out to I finally just gave up and just went out to the street and made a whole new one that's all mine. I got a whole new sewer system that's all
Yeah,
mine.
it's an interesting
Like-
thing.
I won't talk sewer.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I just want clarification on something. You said there's 2 little windows that can't be salvaged. What window, can you repeat what you were saying about the windows that were being changed and which ones aren't?
The 2 that are going to be changed are the ones on the north side, that's in the bedroom, and on the south side, which is in the living room. And those are the ones that are going to be changed, and they'll be wood, and I've gotten recommendations about how they'll be the same height and width, and we'll keep the trim as best we can.
There wasn't.
They're
any-
really rotten. I hate to say the word rotten, but
Well, it happens, rot happens. But there wasn't any other windows that you mentioned?
the only other ones, some of them, like in the bathroom, it looks like those are almost newer windows. And then the ones in the kitchen looked like a new type window. It didn't look 1880. The ones that are interesting are the ones that are very small, 4-paned in the little laundry room, back room where there's a little deck. And those can be restored, and so we'll have the restoring fellow do
Okay,
those.
that's what I was.
Those were cute.
that's
Those,
it.
when they gave estimates for other types of windows that we could possibly use, they didn't have any that came close to looking like that. And it does add charm to the little building.
Okay. Thank you for clarification.
They're essentially like a square 2/2 divided pane window that she's talking about.
Mhm.
There's 2 of them.
They can be restored. Okay.
They're on page 22.
Page 22. It's a cute deck. I've never seen the deck because I always see it from the front.
Yeah, right.
Mullins.
32.
32?
I live
She
right,
lives right near there.
Yep.
just near the Archers, yeah.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, do we have anybody in the audience wishing to speak for, neutral, or against? Doesn't look like there's anybody in the audience, and I don't suppose you've received any communication outside the audience. If there are no objections, the hearing and record is closed. Okay, so it's time for us to discuss it.
Looks good to me.
The only real question
that
is,
case.
does anybody have any heartburn with the hardy plank replacement option, which, since we're looking at non-original siding,
Anyway, right.
But those are the key words here, that it's non-original siding. If it was original siding, it would be a whole other thing that.
yes, we would be having a completely different discussion if it were original siding.
Right.
And I might be going backwards here and you'll have to excuse me, but under the conditions, I don't see where it says that they need to be replaced with wood windows. Or is that what you mean by the including the wood width? How is that clear to the applicant?
Yeah, so they have suggested wood windows, and so when somebody applies, I essentially take for granted that what they're applying with is what they're gonna put in. If they change it, then that, and I've talked to our attorney about this on a different project where they came in, said they were gonna do something, and then they changed it, and then it was, they were trying to say, well, there's no condition that says that, and I talked to the attorney, and the attorney said, no, that's what they applied for.
Yeah, it's in the application, page 23.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
That's good.
Because I just don't want it to come back later like, well, at exactly that point, it's like, well, it didn't say it. So I would just crossing my T's.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's not just it's a combination of the staff report for conditions, but it's mainly what they are applying for the application.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, because if
the
you
primary document.
If
Okay.
you went through and tried to apply conditions on everything that might be there, then it'd be a very long step.
And the hardy plank siding that you're planning on using, you're then also, what?
We can't, that's new.
Okay, fine.
It will have battens, yes. It will have the up and down lines.
So essentially it'll look the same. It'll just be a better material.
So it won't be rotten.
Won't be rotten.
Right, so, you're right.
I'll make a motion that we approve it with the conditions.
With the conditions that staff recommended.
Correct.
Hang on a second.
Say it the right way, right?
It's on the screen
It's,
too.
oh, it's
Thank
on
you
the
for
screen.
being-
Just go ahead. Pam, you do it.
I can,
John,
John, it's on your monitor.
I move to approve the certificate of appropriateness application, file number CA 2023-06, adopting findings, conditions, and staff recommendations as provided in the staff report.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed.
So be it.
there it is.
Is that the last item on our agenda?
It is.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
have,
was there something else?
I have something.
Okay.
The last meeting that we had, previous, the one that, was the house on, can't remember where exactly it was.
It was a certificate of appropriateness.
The one that had
The, well,
original siding.
yeah, right.
Oh, the one over there, yeah.
Yeah, that, okay, so we basically turned that whole down.
Right.
The whole thing down. And so I was kind of wondering what, here's the thing about the scope of work for both of those programs. And to me, it didn't sound like maybe that woman had a clue knew that maybe this kind of stuff was available to her. Could I be wrong about that? Or,
Well-
you know, it's like, this woman has talked, she said she got some information about this stuff, but that other woman didn't sound like she had any information at all.
Right, and, I mean,
Or is it not ethical for us? Then I
No,
was
it's-
thinking, well,
it's-
should we
I
have
do-
said, you know, look at this, we have these things available for people.
yeah, and,
Um,
I mean, I think it's good that we're doing that, because we're
But-
actually
but
trying to
we
promote.
didn't. We didn't do that to her.
So what she was wanting to do was a change in the siding, and what Joseph was what Valley Woodworks is specifically doing is helping folks with wood windows. His scope of work is primarily related to that. Now, it's possible that he could go out there and,
Well,
give
but
some
maybe
advice
the
about-
architect, okay, all right. I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't want to argue about it, but I was thinking about this later and I was thinking, that woman sounded like basically she was gonna have, just my impression, that she was gonna have to give up and sell the house because she couldn't handle this. Because I felt that maybe she got COVID, because part of it was she was trying to fix it up and got sick. And maybe she got COVID or whatever. But if we have these things available to people, I mean,
I don't think that service would have helped in that particular instance because the applicant was wanting to do something that simply wasn't going to be allowed under code.
well, but then maybe, right, but maybe with, okay, with like the architectural service or something could have been worked out to help her, you know, because I really felt badly about, not the way that we treated her or anything like that, but maybe she would have been able to have more help from us. But then I thought, well, okay, so, you know, is that unethical for me to suggest anything like that?
it's not, so there is, remember your two roles. You folks have two roles. When you're reviewing something like you reviewed tonight, you're sitting as a judge. And so you're supposed to be impartial. You're supposed to judge things by the facts. You're acting as a judge. So during that, it would have been probably inappropriate to try and push her in that direction. But coming out of that hearing and functioning as a legislative body, because the other role is legislative
And educational.
and educational, you're an advocate for historic preservation in addition to the judge. And it's really important to keep those two roles separate. But you could have said, hey, we do have this program available that might be able to help you. Now, I mean, I'm sort of with Curtis on this. Unfortunately, the scopes that we wrote with those two folks are probably not suited for what she's trying to do.
Well, okay, but, okay, so maybe that, another question I have then is like, thinking in terms of an org chart, where do me as a member of, you know, like you're saying I have two unequal roles to play when I sit here. In other words, the judge and then the legislative part of it.
I wouldn't say
So where
they're-
do I sit, you know, in like,
I think I know where Fred's going to go with this, and they're not unequal. They're simply separate and different. When we have a hearing, we're sitting as judges. And when we're not having a hearing, we're sitting as both advocates and
but when
to
are
some
we sitting
extent
in
legislators.
okay, but wait, the meeting last time, when did we sit as advocates? We
Well-
sat as judges and we turned as judges, we turned the whole thing down. We didn't advocate anything. We didn't say, maybe you should check for alternatives or something like that, or we have programs that might help you out, or, I'm just,
Well, but we could have, I mean, that could have
Yeah,
happened.
why didn't we-
It could have happened after the hearing is closed.
well, okay,
And
but
then
After
then,
the decision was made, actually.
well,
Well,
then,
right.
would that have
How is that
screwed up our
helpful?
ethics or
I'm sorry, what
something?
was the question?
Like, how is that helpful to the person if it's after the hearing is closed for them to
Well,
then
yes.
get that education.
That's part
Like
of
the
the reason.
education has to come first so
That's
that,
part of the reason why
Right.
we are trying to be first. I
No,
mean,
that's a
that's
good
why
point,
we
yeah.
sent out all of the things, and people have taken us up on design assistance.
Well, she
Um,
didn't.
I'm sure that Fred probably advised her of the code and any
We
assistance
went-
that was available
we
from
went-
before the application even got in front of us.
Yeah, and I mean, I told her, at that point, this is gonna be very difficult for the Historic Preservation Commission to approve. You
Well,
know,
it's
so,
impossible, like,
well, I mean, so we're, things like the programs that we're trying to run,
mhm.
those are, educational, things like the award that we give out, that's an an advocate role.
Well, okay, so the other thing too is that we should have more into these two things. So the reason I'm saying that is these are new things for us. The scope of work for the historic preservation, for the window and for the architectural. And if, we just heard about this, a couple of months ago, and nobody's given us any information to be able to allow us to be the legislative part as opposed to the judge part. In other words, am I
It's
making
a
myself
fair
kind of
point.
clear about that?
Yeah,
that's what I've been saying since I joined, however many years ago. We were never really taught anything of what we're supposed to be doing up here.
And
we
we
learn as we
should kind
go.
of be able to add, okay. Can we or not? We'll see, that's my question.
Yeah.
Can we advocate, can we, sitting here during a hearing, advocate this stuff? Or is it
Not
just,
during-
Not during a hearing.
Not during a hearing, not till after the decision's been made. We are not
Well-
advocates for any position during a hearing. We're a quasi judicial body in that instance.
But as soon as the judgment's made, if I gather right, as soon as it's done and we're all gathered after, you're more than welcome to
Yeah.
just to talk to someone, even
But
someone
it's
that was an
too late.
applicant, and
No, but
say,
it's too
let
late
me help
then."
you get what you need to
So,
make sure that you
there's-
get the help. I think it's
there's-
okay to do that.
It's so we've tried to be more proactive, right? Forever, the Historic Preservation Commission was known as like
it wasn't known as very well.
You remodel your building,
They're gonna say no.
essentially the historic policeman, right?
Right,
Like, I
right.
mean, is that
Showing up to, yeah,
that
saying
and
no.
so
Well, saying no, there's the judge,
right? And
okay.
so
I
But
don't,
it's like I brought that card that was mailed out and said, hey, great job on the card.
right.
The staff is being much more proactive and contacting people throughout the city saying, look, you may need to come to us in this. And they're also, I guarantee you, I haven't asked Fred, but I guarantee you when everybody comes to him, he gives them anything we might be able to give as an advocate, any resource, suggestions. And he's walking them through the process. He's told us that.
I know, but what are we doing? That, my point is us sitting here. I don't feel totally comfortable just being a judge. I would like to have the other part that has this stuff to go on. And I know Jennifer down there feels exactly the same way that I do.
I've been
I mean, if
saying
we're gonna
it
have these
for
programs,
years.
let's us do
Years.
stuff with this too. I mean, I don't know exactly how,
Well,
but
I think a lot of what I was talking about that staff is doing is because of what we've been doing the last 5 or 6 years. We also, with staff, put together a good code that we can all work with.
So you think the staff should be doing it, not us?
No, I think the staff
think
is the point of contact for anybody. We should not be out there on the street talking to people
yes,
in
we
general.
should. We should be talking
Telling them
about,
how to do an application.
maybe
that's what I'm
not,
saying.
no, not telling them how to do it, tell them what's available if you make an application. That's what I'm talking, before, not to say how you should do it. This is, okay, this stuff is available. think about this before you make your while you're making your application. We have help for you to do it, instead of like that poor woman, okay.
When did we
We
make the
don't know whether or
decision to
not she
allocate the
received
funds
that
to that?
postcard or not. She
don't
got
know.
the postcard probably
It was
just like
very
I did,
recent,
right?
correct?
I don't, you know, I don't know.
So these funds that are going to this, do you recall who approved those funds to go to that?
No,
We
We
did.
did.
well, and what were the funds? And
They
then
were
what, and so what's the
CLG.
what's the status about this? I mean, how many people have applied for these things? I mean, come on, we need to know this kind of stuff too.
It was a CLG grant, and it was very recently that we allocated that money to these things. I mean, like in the last couple of meetings. as I
Yes,
recall.
I know. And so is the money used up? Is it available? I mean, how
It's
much
still
money is there?
available. It's
How
still
many people
available.
have applied and how many people have been turned down and?
No one's been turned down.
And we can tell people about these programs, and we
Yeah,
know they
you
exist
can-
because
and-
we approve the
And
funding.
you're absolutely a representative, so you can tell people that, hey, there are programs available. So that's an advocate role, and you
Yes.
can play that role.
And then can I play that role like at the,
At the hearing, no.
No.
We're proactive. We still have to react to applications when they're submitted.
okay,
I would like to say, though, that I did see someone that's in town that owns an historical home. She's already utilized the architect,
Several people have utilized
And-
both.
and she showed me the work that she got from the
Oh, yeah.
architect, and it's phenomenal. Like, it's really, really great and very, very thorough, and so I was really proud of that when
Yeah.
I got to see it. I wanted to
Yeah,
bring you,
there's-
I wanted to bring you
yeah,
to show
'cause
you.
I'd like to see that kind
Yeah,
of
I
stuff.
just-
I'd like
I
to
will.
see,
I'll
I
bring
mean,
it
this
in.
is all I
have
know.
it
Might be
Like,
helpful to have them just come to the
Right.
meeting.
I had her
That's a
thought.
really
What
good
does
point,
this
too.
mean?
Just
See
to,
if they could for January and have her.
No,
put
I
it on
mean.
the agenda.
Because I know we used to have a porch.
What we've,
So
what-
I was
how
like,
it's
Well, I
working.
But
mean,
my porch back.
we don't,
Yes,
Wait.
we do. I mean.
She did.
here's the thing is, when we approve something, we're not gonna get a
Well,
breakdown on what's
I have to
going
take
on
those
with.
steps out.
Why not?
Within
First,
a
I
month
have
or
to-
two.
Okay.
We'll probably hear from Fred after the CLG money's been spent, and he'll give us
so
his,
now
And
there's
I'm
his
more than happy
assessment.
to invite him in. I'm more
So
than
now
happy
I think
to
I can
do all
call
that. I think what I want you guys to realize is, I mean, unfortunately, there's one planner here.
Right, right.
There's
that's
a
true, too.
fair number of projects going on, and it'd be great to try and do everything. It would be great to be super proactive about historic preservation, but unfortunately, like,
There's only you.
There's-
We get it. we
there's
get
a
it.
limited
But
amount
we
of.
couldn't we do things for
You could
you?
do things.
Like what?
You could tell people about the program. That's a completely great.
Well, could we, okay, so how about this? Just a thought. Somebody makes an application, okay? And the first step is that,
after someone's made an application, we can't be talking to them about it.
okay. So people come and get the information to make an application,
It's-
and the first step that they hear is, okay, so we have people on the Historic Preservation Commission that will explain our programs that are available to people.
If we're catching them at the time of the application,
It's too late.
It's too late.
No,
That's why,
So,
they have to come in and get a form, don't they?
no.
How do they
can-
apply?
They can
Online.
download it from online.
no,
We,
okay.
stuff comes in.
I want to hear what Jennifer wants to say.
that's why pre-COVID, I was asking about, like, when people buy historic homes, if we couldn't just put
Well,
like a little
yeah, we know
welcome,
that.
hello, we have these programs.
Right.
Please don't do anything to your house without getting permission. Like, I mean, there's so much paperwork that comes with buying a house. What's one more little slip of paper that says, you're buying a historic home, honey? Like, you
Right,
gotta know
and-
there's resources and rules.
And I mean, a good example of advocacy is when Commissioner Boisbert brought in the
forms.
forms.
I can share those with you, Jennifer, because I think you were, I can't, you weren't, was it last time I brought those in?
Yes, and.
But I
you-
showed everybody the actual documents that are now, that accompany the purchase agreement
Mhm.
for historical homes.
And when did those come into effect? When did those start
they-
being done?
You know, I've been an independent since 2015, and I remember being out there and having, I think it was, anyways, it came up that there was nothing.
Mhm.
And so it's been probably in the last 7 years, but they change yearly, and I would love to share those with you. I'll make sure
Sure.
you get a copy if you'd like to read them.
Absolutely.
But I would say probably really, truly, probably in the last 3 years. And
So
that, and there's
anybody that-
people and there's agents that still do not even use them,
Oh, I'm
right?
sure.
So you can have the forms, you can have the information.
So
You
stuff
can
like
send
that,
out
that is a
postcards
good-
to people's homes about what we have to provide, but it doesn't mean that people are gonna use them but all we can do is the best that we can do and provide the information.
Right.
But I would
so a
like to
good
take what you said a
advocacy-
step further and just say, like, as the HPC, maybe as far as the legislative and educational part of it, maybe there's something that we can create to say, oh, well, welcome to Independence.
Right, and
You've
that's,
just purchased a
Mhm.
home. So maybe we could elaborate on that and come up with some kind of welcome packet.
right, and that's what I had suggested
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
back and was told no, that we couldn't at that point. So I don't know what's changed or if there's a different understanding or whatever, because I was like, freaking door hangers, put it on the knob that says, hey, welcome to
Or
Independence.
like that
Well,
mailer
the
that I
thing-
brought in for
You're,
everybody to see that didn't notice it, that the city put out.
But this is not for buying homes. This is probably for people, these two things that have maybe had homes like.
There's many
the
people that
woman,
are buying
you know.
historic homes that need that because a lot
Well,
of the
sure, but
historical.
I'm thinking about the woman last meeting,
Sure.
I mean.
I think she got the postcard just like I did.
Right, but I mean, she didn't buy her historic home like, a year
A
ago
year
or
ago,
something,
right.
or 3 years ago.
Right,
It sounded
she's
like
been dealing with that
a
siding
long
for
time.
years.
Yeah, for a long time,
So- Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
anyway.
we've thoroughly beat
Yeah.
this horse.
Well.
I think that it's good to stay
No,
open-minded
it's-
about what we can do to be the strongest
Well,
HPC
yeah.
commission, committee for our, for independence, right? So it's good that we want to have that discussion.
And there's a lot of, when she pointed out that the sign being right in front of the house, that's another attention
That's-
grabber.
Mhm.
That's
So you have
another thing that we
you have
discussed
things online, you
Yes.
have-
at length,
you have to
and
do it
those signs
so
are
many
great.
Yeah,
different
that
ways.
literally came from this commission.
Yes, I mean, I get it, but.
It takes a
you know,
lot of redundancy because you don't know what's going to come across to
No,
each person.
I know. I just feel really bad about last meeting, myself,
I-
that's all.
I think that you're sympathizing with the person because they were in a spot that they didn't want to be in, but unfortunately, there was nothing that the commission could do
At the point,
before,
right, I know,
during,
I
or
know,
after
right.
the hearing to
Yeah.
alleviate that situation. But I can tell you from the years I've been on here, we have been doing things to be proactive, from the signage out in front of properties now, to mailers going
Awards.
out in the city, awards. There's a lot of proactive education and that originated from this commission.
And even stuff like getting the window guy out at Petty's place, right? And like being willing to do the windows for that. That's proactive preservation. That's a good thing, right? Also, Jane going out and looking at people's houses and helping them thinking about how to do a sensible remodel. That is a good project.
I think it's a project that I'm so thankful to have it, and I think we're really gonna not see the fruits of the labor for some time even, like what will come of how great it really is, right?
Right, I think it turned out way better than we could have anticipated.
It was certainly
but-
a better use of the CLG funds than what we were doing before. I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely.
Will you remind me what CLG stands for again?
Certified local government. And what do we get, about 10 or 20,000 every couple of years?
Yeah, it's like 15 or 16,000.
Every couple of years, you said?
Yep, and if you put it into a building, you have to go through the NEPA process. And
And
the
it's-
applicant might pull out on you.
Not only the applicant might pull out,
Well,
the timing is horrendous for
Right.
projects.
You get a short window of
It never really worked out, and then sometimes the grant money would have too many strings attached to it. It just never panned out the way any of us wanted it to. And I think that we made a good choice on or Fred suggested a good choice. That was a excellent recommendation that we went for.
There's no reason that us as the HBC can't meet on the side, right? If we wanted to
you-
brainstorm about ideas and,
You cannot meet on the side, but we're more than happy to put brainstorming of projects that you folks can do on an agenda. You can't meet outside of a meeting because you are a standing body of the
It's
of
against
the
state
city.
law.
It's against state law.
We're a standing body of the city.
We're-
So who's our boss? You?
No, you're a citizen group. I'm your liaison to,
The city
don't-
council
the
is our
council.
boss.
No,
the-
no, I'm
yeah,
really
you're-
serious, like,
yeah.
who,
I'm the staff to the commission. I'm the staff to the commission.
to the city council, are they our bosses? I mean, who's ultimately our bosses?
The city
city
council
manager
and
is-
mayor,
no, it's the
the mayor recommends appointing, the city council votes on it. That's how we get on here. But we don't really have a boss. We have to work within the confines of state law and city code.
And then what about the city manager?
No,
No, but they, okay, but. So we don't really have a boss, is what you're saying.
Not
other
in the
words, if-
traditional
if you
sense
had
of a
an org
boss.
chart, where would we be? I mean, what you're saying is that we're a citizens council, right?
You're,
citizen group, is what
I
you call
mean,
this.
you
Said
are,
council.
in your quasi judicial function, you make land use decisions.
Uh-huh.
So you're part of like a planning, you're under the land use code, right? So like if you're like a planning board, right? And your decision, like I make decisions on stuff, they can get appealed to council, just like your decisions could get appealed to council
or get appealed to the state as well.
or get appealed to the state. Yeah, we could get taken to LUBA at any time.
If I may, Commissioner DeVane, we will be having some board and commission training here probably after the first of the year, but the short version is that you are a commission of the city. The city council passed legislation years ago establishing certain committees like library board, the planning commission, the historic preservation commission, parks and recreation board. And those boards are all given certain powers that are established in our code, as well as that may be established by the state. And that is your boss, are those codes. And the city council is the one that, if you make a decision and somebody says, we don't like your decision, I want to appeal it, it will go to the city council and they can either approve your decision or they can overturn it. And so if that's what you want to call a boss, that's what that is.
It's sort of like a court system where you have a judge, he doesn't have a boss, he makes a decision, but there are appellate courts that the people can go to.
But
And
like,
then they have appellate courts. We're part of the machine, but we're independent after we're on here. And we follow the codes that the city has adopted.
but we also have to, like, what is it, every 2 years, go onto the website and say that,
Every year,
we're not graft
Conflict
oriented.
of interest.
Yeah, and all that stuff. I mean, like,
That's part of state requirements. Remember how I said we have to follow state law too?
yes, right, yes.
Is there a particular reason that you're wondering who our boss is?
Well, I kind of like to, maybe. I'm thinking about things.
That sounds like,
I don't have a
that sounds like an
particular-
answer I'd give.
I don't have a particular reason right at this minute, but I'm thinking about things. And
Sure.
like, for instance, if we made a decision or like this. Okay, so what if I said to that woman, oh boy, it's really terrible. Does anybody remember her name?
Are you talking about the
Last
same case?
Yeah, Gates? is-
No, the same case that you're talking about, the,
The last
The
application that we
last
turned
idea
down.
that we had, what was that? Is it
I don't
in
have it
our
with me.
minutes?
I don't have it with me.
Anyway,
I thought it was the time before last, but maybe I'm.
I thought, well, anyway, I mean, if I had turned around and said, okay, so we have these things, like, before you said the hearing was closed, would say something, because we have don't we have a time when the committee
You can ask
talk?
questions of the,
Right, and if I went ahead and said, well, listen, we got these programs and haven't
that would
you?
be inappropriate.
Well, okay, all
That
right.
would be my job to step in.
Well, your job is what? The boss?
No, the chair.
Okay, and why would it be inappropriate since it's our, like, our,
Because then you're acting the role as advocate instead of
you're not being,
You're not judging the application based on the merits of the application.
yeah. The merits of the application are basically the code criteria. And at that point, I would say something, I mean, I did something tonight. I said, no, you can't ask that because it was outside the
window to.
Parameters.
the parameters of the hearing. It isn't a big deal. It's not that I'm a boss, but
Well, I
I'm
mean, well-
expected to maintain the hearing so that, one, our decisions will stand against scrutiny, because it's very clear that we have certain guidelines on how the hearings are run. And that's to protect everybody's rights, including the city's. So what I would suggest is definitely get us out that notice for training for boards and commissions.
well.
I know I could benefit from that. I'm new here,
We can
so
always benefit from a refresher course,
Well,
every
yes,
single one of
okay,
us.
yes,
it'd
we
be a good
certainly
yearly
can.
thing to do at the beginning of the year, just to start out strong.
Okay, is there anything else? We're adjourned.
Okay.
I feel like you need to have them out. Oh, you do